Hello, everyone. I'm Ruben Alvarez. I have the honor of serving as the Chief Executive Officer of Latino Leaders Network. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, which includes our Chairman and Founder, Mickey Ibarra, I'd like to welcome all of you to our Cafecito series event, which was created to present a young leader with the Rising Star Award. So please join me in welcoming our Rising Star, Nayeli Cobo. The Cafecito series joins our two longstanding signature events, the Tribute to Mayors and the Latino Leaders Luncheon Series, both dedicated to bringing leaders together to share our personal stories of obstacles overcome to achieve success and to celebrate Latino leadership. This year marks the Latino Leader Network's 20th anniversary, and I'm very excited to take on the role of CEO to assist and help advance our Chairman Mickey Ibarra's vision of uniting our leaders in our communities. And just to set the record straight, Mickey's not going anywhere. He's still going to continue his role as chair and help lead the organization. We are proud to host the Cafecito series because this event allows a new generation of leaders to engage, connect, and network with more established and experienced professionals. And I hope all of you have had an opportunity to mingle and get to know someone new in our reception that we just concluded. And how about this venue? What an amazing place. I want to thank the Smithsonian American Art Museum for allowing us to convene our program at this amazing venue. And with us this morning to provide remarks on behalf of the museum is Dr. Jane Carpenter Rock, Acting CEO of SAM.
Good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos. We are so pleased to have you all here with us today. We are so thrilled that you will get to know our museum during the course of your visit here today, and we're honored to have you all. My name is Jane Carpenter Rock, Acting Director of the Smithsonian American Art Museum. We call it SAM for short, so when you hear me say SAM, you'll know what I'm speaking about. It's a joy to have you here today. It's been a distinct honor and pleasure working with Mickey Ibarra and Ruben Alvarez and the entire Latino Leaders Network staff to bring this event here to SAM and to host you. We're honored to host you all as innovators and youth leaders, and we feel that your mission very perfectly aligns with the Smithsonian mission to increase and diffuse knowledge and leadership and scholarship across our nation. We also embrace innovation and creativity. And so the award today for Nayeli is a perfect example of values that we hold dear here at the Smithsonian, so we feel like our missions align perfectly. The Smithsonian American Art Museum's Latinx art collection represents a profound commitment to building a great national collection reflecting the rich contributions of Latinos to our country from the colonial period to the present. Artists featured in our collection reflect the diversity of Latino communities across the United States, including artists of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, and Dominican descent, as well as other Latin American groups with deep roots in the United States. SAM's Latinx art collection presents a picture of an evolving national culture that challenges expectations of what is meant by American and Latino. Many of the Latinx artists in the collection critically probe American history and popular culture, revealing the possibilities and tensions of expansionism, migration, and settlement. Those themes and others are explored by Latin artists in our contemporary art gallery. As you walked up the steps to the museum, I hoped you noticed a big statue on the outside called Vaquero. It is done by an artist that we hold very dear here, Luis Jimenez. It's of a cowboy on a bucking horse. It's very dramatic. We love that that is one of the first pieces of artwork that you encounter when you come to our museum. The artist, Luis Jimenez, began making monumental sculptures amid the Latino civil rights movement. He dedicated himself to contemporary subjects that represented a racially diverse and working-class America. Vaquero is one of his most celebrated works. And for those going on the tour later today, you will see another piece by him in our modern and contemporary galleries. Before you leave today, even if you're not going on the official tour that's been organized, I encourage you to visit the Lincoln Gallery on the 3rd floor to see other Latin artists, such as Miguel Luciano, Melicio Casas, Herman Herrera, Teresita Fernandez, and other works by Jimenez. We are so proud to showcase these Latino artists and to share their messages with more than 1 million visitors each year. So in closing, I'd like to say we would like for you to stay in touch with us. You see a QR code there. We hope you can scan it. You will learn much more about our museum. And we encourage you to come back at any time. And we hope you consider this your home, because this is an American art collection reflecting the diversity of all cultures within the United States. And finally, I'd like to say congratulations to Naleli. Congratulations. And thank you so much for coming here today.
As Dr. Carpenter-Rock mentioned, some of you signed up to take the guided tour at the conclusion of our event. There will be 2 docents in the courtyard waiting for those who've signed up. And if you didn't sign up and have an interest in taking the tour, please join the group. They will have a sign indicating that they'll be taking you on the tour. Today's event is made possible due to the generosity of our good corporate partners. We're grateful for the support of our premier sponsor, Wells Fargo. And with us to provide sponsor remarks is my good friend, Ruben Barales, Senior Vice President of External Affairs.
Thanks, Ruben. You don't get a lot of programs where you have 2 Rubens on the program. Obviously myself and then the better looking Ruben. Thank you so much, Ruben and Mickey, for having us here and for what you've created through Latino Leaders Network. Mickey Ibarra and I actually had the same job at the White House for different administrations, and working across the aisle, it's been a fantastic friendship. Mickey, I really appreciate that, but I really appreciate what you've done in developing Latino Leaders Network, which is an awesome network of Latino and Latina leaders across this country who are really making a difference. And the thing that's unique about the Latino Leaders Network is Mickey and Ruben and the team create a space for us to come together, to meet, and create some possibilities to do some incredible things. Even some possibilities like in the case of Estuardo and Tony to get into trouble in doing some activities afterwards. I do want to highlight the importance of, I think, this Cafecito because, normally when we talk about Latino leaders, we're talking about old people like Ruben and me. But what we're trying to do with the Cafecito series is really to identify emerging leadership. So Nayeli, congratulations to you and for what you're doing. And I think the tie-in to environmental stewardship and activism is important for all of us, not just the Latino community, but all of us. At Wells Fargo, we're focused on environmental issues, and I can point you to all our websites and everything that talks about the sustainability. But in our business and in the financing that we do in industry and creating economic growth, you'll see that we've done some innovative things. I really encourage you to check that out. But even more importantly, I'm just the pretty face of the sponsor, the lead sponsor, but we got a lot of other sponsors: Southwest, NEA, Geico, Pepco, Bank of America, PG&E, CVS Health, and others who are all helping to make this possible. So thanks to all of the sponsors. Thanks again, Latino Leaders Network, and congratulations, and looking forward to hearing the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Ruben. You actually made my job easier by mentioning all the sponsors. I also want to recognize Southwest Airlines, the official airlines of Latino Leaders Network. And as Ruben mentioned, we are grateful for the support of our VIP sponsors. If you can see the big screen, again, it's PG&E, Bank of America, CVS Health, Geico, and Pepco. And finally, I want to thank the National Education Association for being our book sponsor. Each of you have been provided a signed copy of our book, Latino Leaders Speak, courtesy of NEA. Now, please direct your attention to the big screen for a 2-minute Latino Leader Network video.
More and more of America's school children are Latino, 25% nationwide and growing fast. There is a need for Latino role models, inspiring heroes, and outstanding leaders in the classroom. The Latino Leaders Network and the California Global Education Project have partnered to make a unique curriculum guide. It will engage students to learn about the powerful stories of Latino leaders in contemporary society.
These stories inspire us to be better members of our community, of our nation, and the world.
Our goal is to inspire the next generation of leaders from high school to early college.
Help us get the word out to educators. Let them know of this valuable new resource. Urge them to get it into our classrooms, and it's all free of charge.
I want to thank again National Education Association, and I want to personally thank Rocio Incline, a very good friend for a long time. Thank you for your support and making this possible. And now, to present the Latino Leaders Network's Rising Star Award, I want to invite our organization's founder and chairman, whose vision and leadership has been instrumental in building a national footprint for our organization, the Honorable Mickey Ibarra.
Well, hello, everyone. I want to thank Ruben Alvarez for his leadership as CEO of the Latino Leaders Network. You know, this just began on January 1st. Before presenting our Rising Star Award, though, I also want to thank Ruben Barales of Wells Fargo, the premier sponsor. As he alluded to, when we launched this event, this series, in 2020, it was Wells Fargo that stood up to support us, and it was virtual. It was, remember 2020? It's a year that some of us would like to forget, that's certainly true. But we're very grateful for Ruben's support and Wells Fargo. We're also grateful for the support of Dr. Jane Carpenter-Rock, of course, who we've heard from, the acting director. And I also want to thank Jean Lee Choi, who is really her right hand and helped connect us to put this partnership together. This is new, and I hope it won't be the last, because this is a wonderful venue, a wonderful opportunity for us to participate with the Smithsonian in celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and as it turns out, Climate Week in New York City, to be sure, but really throughout the country. Now, prior to presenting the Rising Star Award, we wanted to share a short video about our honoree, Nayeli Cobo. This was produced for the prestigious Goldman Environmental Prize, which was a ceremony in 2022 hosted by none other than Jane Fonda. This 4-minute video is a wonderful tribute to Nayeli, and we'd like to share it with everyone here today.
21-year-old Nayeli Cobo has been fighting to end oil extraction since she was a child.
Over 500,000 Angelinos live within a quarter of a mile to an active oil and gas well, and those emissions have been scientifically proven to damage our health and our environment.
In 2004, Nayeli's family moved into a South Los Angeles apartment neighboring an oil well operated by Alanco Energy. Toxic emissions permeated the neighborhood and began affecting Nayeli's health.
My nosebleeds got so severe I had to sleep in a chair to prevent choking on my own blood. I developed asthma. I had heart palpitations and horrible headaches. My mom developed asthma. My sister had headaches, stomach pains. So it was a really hard time.
Speaking with her neighbors, Nayeli's mother, Monique, realized that the health issues were widespread. Residents began organizing, and at only 9 years old, Nayeli became the spokesperson for People Not Pozos, a grassroots community group.
I live in front of an oil well, and the oil well has been making me sick.
Nayeli and her mother went door to door, distributing flyers and documenting illnesses. Speaking at rallies and government meetings, Nayeli garnered media coverage and political support that pressured Alanco to temporarily halt operations in 2013.
I didn't need to use my inhaler 3 times a day. My nosebleeds went away. But then we were aware that we weren't the only community being affected by oil extraction.
Wanting to address the disproportionate number of oil wells permitted in minority communities, Nayeli co-founded the South Central Youth Leadership Coalition.
Everyone has the right to breathe clean air no matter. We sued the city of Los Angeles in 2015 for a violation of the California Environmental Quality Act and environmental racism, and we won.
Hi everyone, my name is Nayeli Kobo.
By the time she graduated high school, Nayeli had become a powerful advocate for environmental justice. But in 2019, her life was turned upside down with the diagnosis of a rare form of cancer.
As soon as the doctor said, you have cancer, I immediately thought of the signs on Elenco's wall that says dangerous chemicals known to cause cancer, birth defects, and reproductive harm.
Nayeli spent the next 2 years undergoing intensive medical treatment. But the momentum of her efforts continued. In 2020, thanks to Nayeli and the community's years of tireless activism, the Alenco site was forced to permanently cease operations. This remarkable victory has Alenco executives facing over 24 criminal charges for environmental health and safety violations.
When Alenco was permanently shut down, I remember feeling at peace in a way that I knew that nobody in my community was gonna be breathing those toxic emissions anymore. That's historic.
Nayeli's cancer went into remission, and her activism continues to affect change, most recently with a groundbreaking city council vote to ban new oil wells and phase out existing ones.
Wow. Wow. See this right here. This is for you. Now let me just say that the annual Rising Star Award that we have presented since 2019, recognizing young Latina leader as well, who demonstrates exceptional promise, leadership, and commitment to community. Nayeli Kobo, on behalf of the Latino Leaders Network, it is my honor to present you with our 2024 Rising Star Award. And now we'll hear acceptance remarks from our rising star.
Thank you so much to Mickey, to Ruben, and to the Latino Leaders Network for this award. It's truly an honor. I want to dedicate this award to my North Star, my mentor, my biggest inspiration, my best friend, who happens to be my mom. Mami, gracias por todo. When I began my work at 9 years old, I didn't even know what the word activist was. I didn't learn the word activist until I was 11, and it was because a reporter had asked me, "How do you feel being an activist?" And I told her to pause our recording and explain that fancy new word she had just thrown at me, but I learned my community was made up of activists. So many times when growing up in a frontline community in a sacrifice zone, we have no control over tanker traffic, pollution, noise, emissions released in our community. But we have the power of our voice. We have the power to organize. We have the power of our stories. And as long as I'm here, I'm going to truthfully and unapologetically share my story to create change for our communities and those alike. As we just learned, 2 years ago, we had a historic change when the Los Angeles City Council and County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to ban all new oil exploration and phase out the existing sites over 20 years. However, just recently, that ruling was overturned. Don't worry, because what do we do when our community is under attack? We stand up and we fight back. So I'm gonna ask you again. What do we do when our community is under attack? There was no fight in that. I'm gonna ask you guys again. What do you do when your community is under attack? I know you felt the power in that one. So we are going to stand up and fight back. There is a bill currently sitting on California Governor Gavin Newsom's desk, AB 3233. And with your help, with social media, with word of mouth, we are going to apply pressure to him to sign that bill to reinforce the rights of cities and communities to breathe clean air in their very own backyards. Everyone has a right to breathe clean air regardless of their age, their gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, zip code, or religion. Clean air is a basic human right that's being denied to us. And we are going to stand up and fight back for that right. Thank you so much.
Now you know why she's our rising star. Second here, okay. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Ignacia Moreno, who will be moderating a very special conversation between intergenerational leaders. Ignacia Moreno is the Chief Executive Officer and founding principal of the I. Moreno Group, a majority minority-owned and majority women-owned law firm that provides legal services and strategic counseling on environmental and natural resources, criminal defense, and immigration matters. Ms. Moreno is recognized as one of the nation's leading environmental and natural resources attorneys. During her 34-year career, she has served as the top environmental lawyer at the U.S. Department of Justice and practiced environmental law and litigation at prominent national law firms. In 2009, President Obama nominated Ms. Moreno to serve as Assistant Attorney General of the Environment and Natural Resources Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. Ms. Moreno, turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. It's still buenos dias. Welcome to the Latino Leaders Network Cafecito. I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you, Mickey, for hosting this event. And my thanks to Ruben for the kind introduction. You have heard Nayeli Cabo's inspiring story. I will not do it justice by repeating it. She needs no introduction. She is an inspiration to us all. Congratulations, Nayeli, on receiving the Rising Star Award. It is more than well-deserved.
Thank you so much.
Also remarkable is Jeff Prieto's journey from Southern California to the Office of General Counsel of the Environmental Protection Agency, one of the most consequential agencies in the executive branch of the United States dedicated to protecting the environment and health of the American people. Jeff just recently left that position, in fact, on Friday. So he's brand new. He can now talk about all this stuff. Both Nayeli and Jeff's bios are in the materials provided to you. So you can read about both of their amazing journeys. So my role is going to be to narrate and moderate a conversation with Nayeli and Jeff. And if time permits, we will invite questions from the audience. So let me start with Jeff. Jeff, I'm going to ask you to look back. Who was Jeff Prieto at 18, 22, and 30 years of age? And what advice would you give him if you could go back in time?
So first of all, I want to thank Mickey Ibarra for his leadership and for creating this space. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be here. I want to thank Ignacia, who's actually my mentor, who provided me opportunities in the federal government when I was at the Department of Justice to serve in the front office of the Environment and Natural Resources Division, and provided me an opportunity to go on with my career. And I'm just honored to sit next to Nayeli. Already, there is hope in our community in terms of how we can move forward with not only a vision, with a passion, and with a commitment. You know, I'll be very brief. You know, I don't come from an educated family. At 18, I had already dropped out of college. Even though I was given an opportunity, I just didn't know if it was something that I could actually accomplish. And the voice that I heard at 18 was one of my mentors, a man by the name of Ross Castro, who was a gardener, who also founded the Brown Berets in our community, who reminded me that this opportunity was given to me not to benefit myself, but to benefit the community. At 22, I was back in school. It was hard. I wasn't necessarily prepared to go to a UC. And the voice that I heard at that particular time was the voice of my mother, who prayed for her sons, who joined churches so that her sons could find spirituality, churches that were dedicated to drug addicts and gang members. And you know, every school that I've gone to, UCLA, Princeton, has written about my background. Don't need to talk about it, but I heard the voice of my mother. At 30, I was back in school, basically going to law school at UCLA, graduate school at Princeton, and the voice that I hear at that time is my wife. I'm not a good planner. My youngest son was here, who was born during the second year of law school. Our first son was, 1 year old, and they grew up in married student housing on both coasts. So there was no plan there. But there were always voices reminding me that people had gone before me. Voices reminded me that we had responsibilities, and voices reminded me that there was hope if we continued to work hard.
Thank you, Jeff. Nayeli, looking forward to your 30s, 40s, and 50s. What do you want to see in the world? And what will you do?
You have a harder question.
And what will you do today to make your vision for the future a reality?
Wow. I truly dream of a world where my story ends with me. I dream of a world where no activist is born out of survival at the age of 9 like I was, or no future 19-year-old is forced to choose between her life or her reproductive system. I dream where urban oil extraction is only read about in history books and not through lived experiences. And I think that's the future I dream of, where every day I know that I'm one step closer to having my story end with me, to being, I don't know how old I'll be, but whenever it happens, that's the world I'd be very, very proud to live in, and the world I'm fighting for actively every day.
Thank you. Jeff, what do you consider your most enduring accomplishment, and how did you achieve it?
I'm incredibly proud of the work that EPA has done relative to our regulatory agenda, relative to the creation of an Office of Environmental Justice and Civil Rights, relative to every single lawsuit that we defend. And we defend them well. We defend them strategically, we defend them smartly, and we are very confident in the legal office of EPA doing its job. But those are shared accomplishments. If there's one thing that I'm most proud of, is the workspace that I've created, that I have the ability. I've been a confirmed general counsel at both USDA and EPA, and I've had the opportunity to lead hundreds of people. And there are two things that inspire me when I'm in that particular position. As a Chicano, I remember everything. I remember every slight. I remember every barrier. I remember every word that was said to me, right, that told me that I couldn't do what I was going to do. But I also remember my mom, who worked a split shift so that she could be home for her children, who never complained and was a secretary, and that was her title. And every space that I'm in where I'm actually in charge, what I'm trying to create is something that reflects a place where people are included, where people have a voice, where people aren't afraid to speak, where people are respected no matter what they look like, who they are, or where they come from. That's what I have control over, and I'm proud of the spaces that I feel that I've been able to create, but I'm also proud of the work of EPA in this administration.
Thank you. Nayeli, the same question to you. What do you consider your most enduring accomplishment to date, I know there's a lot more to come. And how did you achieve it?
I think the biggest victory that I find so much joy looking back in was the first one when we first was a temporary ban of the oil well that I grew up next to, because it was something that for so long it was impossible. How can a community, Spanish-speaking, primarily undocumented, black and brown community from South Central Los Angeles, fight the oil industry? One of the biggest corporations. How could we fight against, because the oil well in my community operates on land that is leased to them by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. We were also fighting the church. So it was, without attacking the faith, I would like to make that very, very clear. It was a lot of barriers. We were fighting very, very large monsters. We were fighting against the broken regulatory system, and we were creating history. You know, we said that is possible to shut down oil wells in communities with community activism, with storytelling, with elected officials, and with policy changes. We did that. And I think it was such a powerful moment in history to say that this is possible, that communities can win, that we do have the right to breathe clean air, we have the power of our voices. When I was in elementary school, I was learning 5 + 5. It was saying that our stories are enough, and knowing that spurred the beginning of a Stand LA, which is a coalition that fights to phase out and ban all new oil wells in the city of Los Angeles. It snowballed from there. And I think that was a very, very big turning point for me. And I remember the day we found out it was temporarily closing. I remember everything about that day. We were having a family dinner with my entire family, and we were eating potato soup, caldo de papa, and my mom got a work call. She excused herself and she started crying. Me being the nosy kid I am, I started poking her. Mom, who is it? Mom, what's wrong? What's going on? And she just said, they're closing. Immediately, I was jumping up and down. I asked for permission to scream inside of the house. I was so ecstatic, and I ran to the window and I opened it, which was so simple, but something we couldn't do for so long. Because if you open the windows, you were letting more toxic emissions inside, then the smells wouldn't go away, or you were more likely to get an asthma attack or a nosebleed. And we had that back.
Great. Very powerful. Thank you. So this question is for both of you. What obstacles or setbacks have you faced along the way? And what advice can you share about dealing with those setbacks and obstacles?
Oh, great.
You answer.
A lot. Again, fighting the big oil, the fossil fuel industry, it's not an easy fight. It's not a leveled fight. Fighting against the broken regulatory system, the Archdiocese, and getting them to do what's right. As someone that went to Catholic school her entire life, it was from first grade through senior year of high school, they would tell us, do what Jesus would do, protect God's creation, stand up for your neighbors. So I do feel like it is my job to call them out on being hypocrites for doing the exact opposite. And it is, I also want to say that with these wells operating on land leased to them by the Archdiocese, it's another way that the church continues to abuse children. And we have to make noise. We cannot let it go unnoticed. We cannot let it go unseen or untalked about, because this is affecting real people every day. And with fighting, it's fighting someone that, with most recently in the state of California, the oil industry, with the referendum ban, they were willing to spend up to $200 million on a campaign. I don't know about you, but I don't got that kind of money. Like, I don't, it's not fair. It's not an even playing field, but knowing that we were always, and we continue to advocate with the truth, with love, with our passion, and that love for our community continues to fuel the fight, and that's always going to win. And I'm a woman of faith, and I always think of the David and Goliath story. I know how that story ends, and I'm very proud and honored to stand as David with my community and taking down Goliath in this fight. And again, being a Latina, being a young person in this space, I've always been told you should leave this to the adults in the space, or you don't have a college degree, you don't know what you're talking about. And to one point, they're right. You know, I don't know all of the legal or scientific terms, but I know my story. I know my truth, and that's something I'm always going to share again, truthfully and unapologetically.
There's a lot of power in that. Jeff, I know it's a tough act to follow.
No, it's an impossible act to follow. But what she's just said, and what strikes me and why I'm so inspired, is that we fight oil companies too. But when I think of the resources that we have, I am so inspired by her example. We fight. We fight with the best lawyers in this country. The OGC, that I consider them the best environmental law firm in this country. Smartest people, strategic. I'll own our fight. But this young lady is fighting with something that's even more powerful, something that is more lasting. And I'm inspired. But I'm also inspired because the barriers that she's facing, right, hopefully have been removed by some of the barriers that we faced. Because on a personal level, every position that I've been in, I've been questioned. Did you get your job? Are you smart enough? Did you get it because of how you look? Did you get it because your principal was a person of color? It was never you got your job because you deserved your job. You were smart enough to do your job. You were qualified to do your job. There was always a question, and you always started with a question. And the response to that is always, like my grandfather did at the packing house in Santa Paula for 50 years, work hard. I was always the first. I can be the last. The thing that you couldn't take away was, I'm going to work hard. And I'm not concerned about proving whether you were right or wrong. I've let whatever I've accomplished speak for itself. But those barriers you also face. But what I want to say in ending is, it is amazing to hear her speak. These fights are fought on many, many different levels by many different people. But I follow this young lady in her fight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is for Jeff, and I'm going to preface it by saying that nothing he says here is official on behalf of EPA. He's here in his personal capacity. Now you'll know why I'm saying that in a minute. Jeff, if you were invited to advise the incoming administration, and I'll let you assume who that may be, what would you recommend to the new president as executive actions in the first 100 days?
You know, even in my personal capacity, I'm not sure how to answer that question. And I'm not trying to put pressure on Nayeli. I would want to hear what you have to say relative to, but you know, I'll take one step back. I do. I'm going to take one step back. You know, the foundation that this administration is laying is profound. I will say, from my perspective, and people can disagree, but I'm very happy to have any argument with any previous general counsel or any previous administrator, that Michael Regan has been the most consequential EPA administrator in the history of that agency. As it relates to a regulatory program, as it relates to environmental justice, as it relates to the things that we've actually accomplished. Everything that we do, we're challenged. We sneeze, we're sued, and I'm okay with that. But the foundation is there for a new administration to step forward on that. This has also been the most consequential administration relative to legislation that's been passed. Opportunities for public and private sector to work together to deal with the existential question that we have. Can this planet survive? Can people breathe clean air? Can people drink clean water? There are now resources for all of us to work together to solve this. So I would not be so presumptuous to advise an incoming administration. But what I would say is that there is a strong foundation that has been laid for somebody to move forward. There are resources, there are strategies, there are opportunities. And I hope we take them.
Nayeli, what would you recommend to the new president that she do?
I truly can't help but think of the 18 million Americans living a mile or less to an active oil and gas well. Los Angeles is the largest urban oil field in the nation, which I know a lot of people, when we think of Los Angeles, we tend to think of like the glitz and glamour. But the reality is that 580,000 Angelenos live a quarter of a mile or less to an active oil and gas well currently. 18 million Americans that are not allowed to open their windows in their own home. Cancer Alley in Louisiana between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, their community is 50 times more likely to develop cancer. It's almost like heads or tails. And that's the reality day in and day out of that frontline community. Stopping all production of fossil fuels with a just transition for our planet, our safety, and our health is crucial. Because we all breathe the same air, we all live on the same planet. There's no getting around the climate crisis unless we do the work. 1 in 5 deaths worldwide is due to fossil fuel pollution. Let that sink in. Yet we continue to drill in people's backyards. Yet we continue to call and let people grow up in what is called a sacrifice zone. We aren't making enough noise about that. And I think the next president should definitely stop fossil fuel production for our health, our safety, and our environment.
Thank you. The next question I'm going to ask relates to environmental justice, which both of you have addressed already. But Nayeli, let me ask you this. From the onset of the Biden-Harris administration, the administration announced an all-of-government approach to addressing environmental justice. In your view, has progress been made, and what more can be done?
Again, I always think there's more that can be done. Again, those 18 million Americans.
I think that.
But again, I will say that there has been tremendous progress, like with the ban of exporting LNG. That's incredibly necessary, also not talked about enough. But inviting us frontline communities to be involved in those spaces where decisions about our communities are being made. Inviting us with our knowledge and our own expertise to be heard at that seat or at that table is also necessary, because being in the room is one thing, but having a voice in it is another that doesn't always follow sometimes. And that's, again, crucial. And I'm very aware that urban oil extraction is an odd cup of tea, but for me, it's my upbringing that brought me to this. It's my passion, because I know what it's like to not be able to play outside because you'll trigger an asthma attack, or having to check on your friends to make sure that they're using their inhalers properly or at their time like they told you to check in on them. That's not the reality or a future that children should be living. Like, I remember being in school and checking the clock every 10 to 15 minutes, hoping they open the valves. And I say that because urban oil wells operate under such immense pressure that valves have to be manually opened every 10 to 15 minutes to prevent an explosion. So 10-year-old me would have to go through that every day. Millions of other people have that same reality, and that continues. And until we are not drilling in people's backyards, we still have work to do.
Thank you. Jeff, if you could address this question from the historical perspective, because you've been involved in environmental justice efforts for decades now. Progress made, more to be done, what do you think?
So first, I really want to acknowledge there is always more to be done. And folks like myself who have been in government positions should always be held accountable for the positions that have been taken. But it is interesting seeing progress, and it's like from a different perspective within the federal government. You know, going back, and Ignacio was at the Department of Justice when the first executive order was signed by President Clinton.
That's
And-
how old I am.
I was there too. And the point is, progress has been made in the Democratic administration, step by step. And I will say, the concept of communities, and I'll give two just very quick examples. I'll give an example of Jackson, Mississippi. And we learned from Flint. In Jackson, Mississippi, when that tragedy happened, the administrator was in Jackson, Mississippi within a week and visited multiple times. Worked with Congress to get $600 million to fix that water system. Brought a lawsuit to make sure that people were held accountable. Is it the perfect solution? No. But various tools were brought to that community immediately, and people spent time in the community listening. East Palestine, Ohio. When that tragedy happened, people from EPA were on the site within hours. The administrator again visited high schools, talked to the communities there. Lawsuit was brought against the railroad company. Cleanup took place in an unprecedented manner. Cleanup is now complete. It matters who's in particular seats, and it matters that people go to communities to listen, to respond. Is it perfect? No. And we should be held to a higher standard. But I do think progress has been made strategically, consciously, intentionally, that when these things happen in this administration, there is a recognition that people are being affected and that we have tools, different tools that we can use, and we have.
Thank you. Let's talk about the growing pipeline of the next generation of Latino leaders in our space. Nayeli, how can we ensure that the legacy of Latino, Latina, Latine, fill in the blank, our community's leadership and environmental activism is passed on to future generations?
I love that question. It's important to include us. It's important to talk about it. It's important to invite us to these spaces and to allow us to share our words, our expertise, our questions, to be invited at this space and also uplift each other. We have to build bridges just because I'm very aware that it's a very big struggle for a lot of us to get to certain positions of power. But let's work so it's not so hard for the next person after you. Or let's build a bridge so now there's two of you in that position of power and not just one. There's so much building bridges that's necessary in our community, and I feel like there's still sometimes unfortunately, the mentality of like, well, I paid my dues to get here. That's just how it is. No, let's fix it so the next time it's better. So the next time it's easier. So the next time it's just as meaningful and powerful when the next person is invited there. And having that bridge and having also resources in our community that lack, like we need a lot more in education. We need so many things that are also necessarily not talked about. And having it to be okay to be in different spaces where you're the first to be in that space, or where it's still uncomfortable for you to be in a room full of elected officials, or it's uncomfortable for you to be in a room full of professors. But let's talk about it, and let's have more let's have more individuals like each other in those spaces, because just because we're the first doesn't mean we should be the last. Amen. And we have to again acknowledge our past to continue the future. And we have to do that hand in hand with each other, because I don't know everything. No, like Batman has Robin, it takes a team. And we need to have that support amongst one another when we're in these spaces.
I'd like to pivot off of something you just said to ask you about your mentors and what roles your mentors have played in your journey to date.
My mom is my biggest inspiration. She's my favorite person. I can talk about my mom for hours. Seeing how my mom, as a community leader herself, has always led with love, has always led with care, has always led by example, is something that has been a huge inspiration and a huge example for me to follow myself. Also seeing how my mom grew up talking to me about Dolores Huerta. So seeing Dolores
And
Huerta.
she's still out there,
Yeah,
working
she
hard.
is
Amazing.
incredible, and she's still dancing out there. Let me tell you, I can't keep
She's
up with her.
dancing out there.
It's so powerful to see how there's so many women in this space, how there's so many Latina leaders in the space, and that continues to grow. And I'm just very blessed and fortunate that my biggest Latina leader we're still like roommates.
Wonderful. Jeff, let me ask you, how do you see your role as a mentor, promoter, padrino? What can you share with the audience about the importance of mentorship?
So I also want to just lift up what Nayeli said. We do have a responsibility to make sure that various voices are at the table. Again, I'm proud of EPA creating the first youth federal agency assistance group or advisory group where that meets with the administrators so that, and these were selected over 800 applicants for 20 positions coming to EPA to share. You are absolutely right that this situation, this challenge is generational. There is no one that has in any way cornered the absolute right strategy. The other aspect for Latinos is you're absolutely right. You know what? We are only here on the shoulders and on the work of others. This is not because, the positions that I've reached are not because of me. It's because a community fought so that people like me could have an opportunity and will continue to fight so that other people like me will have opportunities behind me. In terms of mentors, they have been incredibly important to me. Because from my perspective, not looking like everybody else in the room, not coming from the same place, it's hard. You know, the woman to my right, Ignacia Moreno, has been an incredible mentor. But how? Because she provided a young lawyer at DOJ an opportunity to be her counsel, and that was me. She provided me an opportunity to be at Main Justice, where you have to dress up every day and you look at those murals, and every day that I walked into Main Justice, I not only remembered who I was, but I remembered why I was there. Mentors are critical. Mentors that open up doors, mentors that create that safe space. And I still talk to young people all the time. There's on my calendar are coffees at the coffee shop next to EPA. And the questions that they ask, and they will say, this is a dumb question. No, it's not. It's a question I had when I was your age, and it's a question I'm dealing with today in a meeting in 2 hours. Because we haven't progressed that far, right? So it is our responsibility to create opportunities and spaces so that we can talk about how challenging it is sometimes to look like this. And to walk into a room where people don't look like you, and yet to be able to provide.
The gentleman to my left, Jeff Prieto, is a wonderful mentor and mentee. As he has risen and moved ahead in his career, he has never forgotten to give back. And I have seen it. He mentors in that coffee shop. Yes, you could go find him there. Speaking with junior people in all walks of life. And that's the beauty of it. As you go through the pipeline, bring people along. Don't forget that you were brought along. You can't be too fancy not to meet with somebody. So I'm going to invite all of you to mentor someone, because there's a lot of power in that. In the meantime, we're going to take questions from the audience, and I hope you have some. I've been getting flashes of cards over there, but this conversation was so rich, I needed to have it continue. So we have about 5 minutes. Any questions from those in the audience? Gentleman in the back.
All right. Thank you so much for this conversation. My question is for Jeff. So recently, the Supreme Court struck down Chevron, and so how has the EPA shifted its strategy? And for those of us outside of EPA, us Earthling activists, how can we use that decision to increase protections for our environment, for our communities, and how can we support that strategy?
I wasn't kidding when I said, when we sneeze, we get sued, and we're at the very highest court, and I'm now speaking, looking back, and I'm so incredibly proud of the legal team at EPA. I will say that, the decision, the local right decision was anticipated. This wasn't a surprise in many, many ways. Was it, in my mind, a devastating decision? Absolutely. But it was not a surprising decision. And I think that is, and what I'll say with a certain amount of pride, is that if you look at our regulatory rules that are going through the courts, we can defend them, notwithstanding or in spite of or actually consistent with that particular decision. I am very proud, and we are going to be before the Supreme Court again, but in the rules that we have put forward on the vehicle side, on the climate side, on the water side, we've had very good success as we've moved up in the DC Court of Appeals, which is the first step, the next step before the Supreme Court. So, devastating, yes. Surprising, no. And yet we move forward, and I'm really proud of the rules that we're putting forward. We will defend them, and we have been doing it successfully. But what we do need, right, is a recognition that we do need to be doing this together. The judicial environment is a challenge. I'm proud to have been the general counsel during that particular time, and I want you to know that team is committed to the mission of EPA, to protect the environment, to protect human health, and we do it every single day in court, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you. Over there.
Hi, so my question is a similar question. So I'm thinking about the future of environmental justice, and it seems that environmental justice is left up to the executive branch, and it often comes out through executive orders. I'm optimistic about this election. Let's say it doesn't go our way, and a new administration comes in. In the previous administration, environmental justice maybe wasn't center as it is in this administration, and that's seen through enforcement levels and stuff that your office may have done. Is there something that we can do as activists here in DC when looking at national standards or really centering environmental justice regardless of who wins this election?
And I really want Nayeli to because I think that the solution is sitting to my right. The federal government, and what I do love about the federal government is there is obviously tremendous power within the federal government, but the federal government changes. And you see the pendulum, and that's just the reality of what we have seen in the last, 2-3 elections. There is still power throughout this country to fulfill those goals. States like California, cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, communities like South Central that are organizing. The federal government plays a role, but based on the two questions, our role is limited. Limited sometimes by the courts, limited by administrations. And yet there is still power in people like Nayeli who are organizing states, who are organizing counties, who are organizing cities, who are organizing communities. At the end, that is where the power is. And I would just encourage you to find that power. I can't say it any better than she said it, so I'm not going to try.
Take a moderator's prerogative and suggest the following. So I worked on environmental justice in the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, and have watched it from afar in the Biden-Harris administration. You're right that actions are by executive order, which can be done with a pen and undone with a pen. What happens then is to take a look at what's enduring, right? Because in this administration, there was an unprecedented effort to institutionalize the work. So there were offices created at EPA, at DOJ. The executive orders were backed by what? Money in a number of different statutes. The Inflation Reduction Act had a lot of money that is still being put out to communities and others to realize the goals of environmental justice. And you've heard Jeff talk about the legislative efforts, which in this Congress don't go very far, but certainly the enforcement and regulatory efforts that have. So part of what we'll see is to what extent is what's been done enduring because it's been baked in to the missions of the agencies of the executive branch. So I hope that gives you something to go look at and see what comes next. And Nayeli, I'm going to give you the last word on this because I understand we have seconds left, and I'm not going to be late, Mickey.
I would just say again, like, know your truth, know your passion, and fight with that, fight with your love, fight with the love that you have for your community, for our planet, and like igniting that fire in your belly and that passion, because we're the last generation that has any say in climate change. We're the first generation to experience the effects of the climate crisis, but we're the last to be able to do anything about it. So let's remember that, and let's take it every day, day by day, but let's fight truthfully and unapologetically.
Well, I'd like to thank each of you for coming today. It's been spectacular spending time with you in the reception and having you have the benefit of this wonderful conversation with Jeff and Nayeli. And I especially would like to thank Nayeli's mother, Monique. You are an inspiration to all of us. You have a beautiful, wonderful daughter, but the work you personally have done has been tremendous. Thank you for that. And with that, I wish you good day and a big round of applause for our panel.
Thank you. I hope you found that presentation enjoyable and inspirational as much as I have. Let's thank them once again, the moderator and the speakers. Thank you. As all of you know, good events don't happen accidentally. They require good planning and even better execution. I want to thank the event team led by Jana Donaire, Jennifer Arce, Elia Quintana of SEMA Strategies, Sean McNally of Suburban Video, and special thanks to Estrella Mendoza, Julia Alvarez, and all of our volunteers for their help. Thank you so much. Our next event of celebrating 20 years of bringing leaders together will be held on November 13th in Los Angeles, California, where we will be honoring the Honorable Michelle Lujan Grisham, Governor of the state of New Mexico. And again, for those of you who signed up for the tour of the museum, there will be 2 docents in the courtyard waiting for you. And if you are interested in participating in the tour, please join them. I believe we do still have some space available. And this ends today's Cafecito. Thank you all for being here, and have a great day.